Welcome back to Aspire for Me. I'm Jesse, and today we're going to be doing our first ever budgeting video on this channel. Something that many of you have requested for a while, and I've been hoping to do, and I figure at the beginning of this month is a good time to go ahead and start us off with our August budget. So if this is something that you've been wanting and enjoying, sit back and let's take a look at our budget. First of all, I want to talk about the budgeting app we use. Now, we use EveryDollar as our budgeting app to track all of our budgeting. Now, this isn't necessarily the only option out there. Obviously, there's plenty of other budgeting apps. You could budget on paper. You could budget in many different ways. So this just happens to be the one that works with us. We've been using this for probably about 7 years now, and since it came out, we did paper budgeting before this. We took the Dave Ramsey course, and it taught us how to do our budgets on that, which transitioned us into the EveryDollar app once it came out. So I will admit that it was kind of a tough transition going from paper to this app. You would have thought that because they're both in the Dave Ramsey universe that it would kind of seamlessly go from one to the other, but it didn't quite work that way for us. I don't know if everybody budgets a little bit differently, and so that was what made it so that it didn't really make it seamless for us, but it was definitely something that we had to get used to, and took us probably a couple months, 2-3 months, to really understand how they wanted us to use this app. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about a few different things that we've done that have helped us, and hopefully every month's budget I can add an extra little tip on something that you can do when using the EveryDollar app to make it a little bit easier for you. Now again, this isn't the only way to use the EveryDollar app. Find which way works best for you in your circumstances, and everybody's income is going to be different, whether you get paid monthly, weekly, bi-weekly, twice a month, whatever it might be. So you're going to have to figure out what the best use of this app is for you, but I think it's very friendly, and it's got a lot of things that work well with it. They've also done a lot of updates to it since it first came out, and it's getting better and better every time. So we'll discuss a couple things that maybe weren't available in the beginning that are now, and how those have improved. And if you're watching this video in the future, this might not apply to the current app release, and you might find that the things that I'm talking about are actually available even if I say they aren't. So make sure you review it and take a peek at what the app can do for you and whether or not the options are there now after they update it. Alright, so let's take a look at our budget. Okay, so here you'll see this is what every month of a budget will look like for you. So at the beginning, you're going to put in what your expected income is going to be. I don't like to break it out into a bunch of different separate incomes here if you have multiple sources of income. I say total up your total expected income, and then within that you can add in where the different sources came from. So that seems to work best for us. Now if breaking out each individual income works best for you under this category, do it that way. But this is how it works best for us. So we're expecting to bring in $10,000 this month. Now I will say that this is not just our 9-to-5 job income. This is going to include for us our rental income from our Airbnb, and our 2 rental properties that we rent out monthly. So $10,000 obviously hasn't been always what our income has been, and it increases as we can raise rents and as we can get increases in our job. So I'm not going to go break down what we make on each individual job because I need some privacy in my life, but I'll go ahead and share with you kind of the total amounts that we're going to expect to make, and kind of how we break those down to work best for us. And because we're including the income from those properties, of rent and whatnot, we're also going to see the expenses from those properties in here. So we'll kind of go through this here as we go. Alright, so the very first line we're seeing an expected income of $10,000. The other thing that they've added since this app was released was the ability to choose some of your favorite items. So the things that you're putting stuff to more often, that you don't want to scroll through the list to find the item when you're go ahead and tracking your expenses, you can favorite those items so they pop up at the top. So for us, our food and other, gas, gifts, Kim's expenses and our animal expenses are the items that we've chosen to favorite. And you can just do that choose favorite button there. We'll let you kind of change out what things you want to change for your um, favorite section. All right, so then after you get past favorites, it's just going to go from top to bottom through your different categories. So our first category is food and other. Again, I did a recent video on our spending for the month on food category. We do include some other items, household items in our food budget, and we just put it all in one rather than breaking it out. So if it's a cleaning supply or something like that, it will also go into this. Most things that come from a grocery store are going to go into food and other. So we expect to spend about $471.33. And this is probably the most volatile category for us, and it can go up and down depending on what expenses we have. So we'll show you towards the end of the month, if I do a budget wrap-up video, kind of how that totaled out, what that looked like. But let's jump down to the next category, which is our savings. So we have a couple different things here. If we're planning on any specific saving things like travel or emergency fund or something like that that we want to put to, we will go ahead and put that down in this category. I have, for the first item, it says our next goal. We already know what that goal is. I just haven't shared it on the channel yet, so I just have it set as next goal. So be looking forward to a video in the future where we go over what that next goal is going to be. I've got some exciting things to talk about when it comes to that. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss that video coming up on what our next goal is going to be and what the plan is going to be to achieve it. So for this month, we're planning on putting $1,000 towards that next goal. I don't plan on putting any money into travel or any other investment down payments or emergency funds, or this auto transfer is something that keeps our bank account free, and they don't charge us a monthly fee if we automatically transfer at least $50 in there. So we go ahead and put down auto transfer, and then we transfer it back out afterwards. It seems to keep the account free, so we go ahead and make sure we document that. Giving. Kim and I both feel that giving is something that we find important for us. It's something that brings us joy, and so we make sure to plan for our giving. So we've figured out that about $300 for Kim a month and $250 for me. We try to do about 10% of our income from our 9-to-5 jobs into giving, so this just seems to be the number that we've settled on for now, and kind of sets us there. I will say that Kim is a very giving person and will often go over her giving category, so but this is the numbers that kind of settle on. I tend to like to build up my giving account to a certain number and then spend it on some bigger items. We like to do some different nonprofit auctions and stuff like that throughout the year, and so I'll save up some of my giving category so we can go enjoy some of those auctions and give back to different nonprofits that we think deserve some of our money. So that's that category. Cabin expenses. So again, this is our Airbnb cabin, and so this is a quick breakdown of kind of some of the expenses that we spend on it. Our mortgage, which includes taxes and insurance, comes out to $625.57 a month. Our PUD or electric bill is $70.98 a month. That obviously fluctuates based on the amount of electricity used, but that's what we're expecting it to be this month. That can go up or down. Cabin water is $138.65 monthly. That's a set amount within our gated community. It's got a special water company within the community that has wells and everything it maintains, so everybody pays the same water fee monthly. It doesn't matter if you live there full time or if you just come out and stay there. So that is a fixed expense on that property that doesn't change unless they raise it, which does happen from time to time. And then cabinet income and other expenses. Again, this month is a little high due to the fact that this is one of our busy seasons. The cabin is kind of a vacation spot, and as you can imagine, August is a time where people are trying to take vacations, and in spite of all the pandemic and stuff going on right now, the cabin is actually booked solid throughout the whole month of August, and so we make up the majority of our income between June, July, August, and then May and September are okay but don't make as much money, and then the rest of the winter months will make a little bit but don't cover the total cost of the whole thing. So we go ahead and put that extra money that the cabin makes into this account here, and that helps us to make sure that we have enough money in for those months where we're not making the money directly, so we can pull out of that if we need to, if we can't bring in the money on the other areas. So we're putting an extra $1,000. As you can imagine, that's about a month's worth of expenses for the cabin. We're putting an extra so we can cover a whole extra month in that cabin. All right, so some of our utilities, or at least that's the category that the app has categorized this that we put in here. So our Verizon bill comes out to $108.92 a month for our 2 cell phones. AMC, we do the AMC monthly pass where we can go see as many movies or 3 movies a week every week if we want to. And because AMC is closed right now, they're not charging for that, so that's $0. But once they reopen, that'll come back into our budget, so we just go ahead and leave that there for when that's there. Home repairs, we're not planning to add anything to this part of our budget this month. Our Netflix is $14.16 and Disney Plus is $7.61. All right, Pennsylvania expenses. So this is our rental property that is a standalone rental. The mortgage on that property is $1,181.91. Our water bill there is every other month, and it is not due this month, or we didn't budget for it this month. I'll have to talk to Kim about that and figure out if we paid it last month. But we're currently estimating we won't have a water bill this month because it's every other month. So we will go ahead and see what that brings us the next month, and we'll have to adjust our budget accordingly. And then we try and put away some repair money for that house every month so that once there is a repair that needs to be made, we have the funds set aside in more of a sinking fund type of situation. So I'll talk about sinking funds in just a little bit and some additionals, but let's go ahead and finish through our budget, and then we'll talk about some of those other things that have to do with this. All right, so U Street expenses. So this is our primary, and this is the mortgage we have on this. Again, this is a duplex, and we spend $3,016 a month on our taxes, insurance, and all of that. So it's our most expensive property, but again, it is a duplex, so it splits between two units there. Every other month on our water bill, and it came out in July, which does make me imagine that we need to fix that August every other month water bill for the other house, but we're expecting $0 on that. We do have natural gas at this property, so we expect that to come out for about $46.43. Again, that covers both units on this property. Comcast, the other unit pays for the Comcast bill, and then we pay them. So we go ahead and just put down what we expect that to be, but it doesn't come out of this actual section. We pay them in another section. So garbage every other month, and it was in June. So I think that's actually going to come up this month again. So again, another category to go ahead and discuss with Kim to see if we need to add that in. Electric monthly. So we expect our electric bill to be about $118 for the 2 units. And then we do another large repair fund if there's any large repairs that we need to do on this property, do a sinking fund for that. Transportation. We expect to spend about $250 on transportation for the month. This is pretty much just gas and going to and from the grocery stores or work, or what might, if we need an oil change in a vehicle, that goes into this. If we need tires, we put it into this. So that's how we kind of address this situation. Lifestyle. We don't spend a whole lot on clothing. Every once in a while we'll buy clothing, but you'll see that we have our own categories here. So if we do buy clothing, often we spend the money that we set aside for ourselves to do that. So we don't put anything there. Haircuts. Well, my hair is starting to get long again. I probably could use a haircut. I typically cut it pretty short, let it go fairly long, and then cut it short again. So neither of us plan to get a haircut this month, so we have $0 there. Gifts. We put $100 a month into this gift category. If a birthday comes up or something, we have money there to buy that gift for that. Or if Christmas comes around, ideally this fund will build up to a point where we have enough gift money here to go ahead and buy our Christmas gifts out of this fund. Kim, we go ahead and give Kim and myself $100 a month, and that's to spend on whatever we want to spend it on. Again, I tend to spend a lot of my money on big items, and it's just how I like to spend my money. So I'll build this up here to, $1,000 or $2,000, and then buy something like, you know, a new camera or whatever my hobby tends to be at the time. I'll typically spend it on that. So I do buy little things here and there, or I'll stop, and get some fast food for lunch or something, and that might go in here. But for the most part, this is just for us to spend on what we want to spend it on. Animals, we have 3 dogs and a cat, and they all eat quite a bit of food. So this budget amount of $500 is to cover their food, and it's also to cover their different vet expenses throughout the year. So we won't spend all $500 on food, thankfully, but that fund will build up to be a bit of a buffer for when those annual vet visits or any emergent vet visits that need to come up will come out of that $500. All right, so then taxes and insurance. So you'll see a lot of zeros here. These are typically things that maybe we had to purchase in the past, or we're expecting to have to add into the budget in the future. Helps us just remember them and make sure we don't accidentally forget to add that in. So we do typically put about $100 a month into our medical sinking fund to kind of just make sure that we're going to have some money in there if some medical expenses come up. And or if we have a doctor's visit that month, we can just take it right out. We don't have to figure out where that money is going to come from. So that seems to be enough. If a bigger medical expense comes up, we just figure out in the budget how we're going to pay for that later. So, and then, identity theft insurance will come up once a year. If we have any business licenses or landlord licenses, or Kim is a nurse, so she has to do suicide prevention classes, and then life insurance. So again, this month we're not expecting to have those expenses, but they're there for future months, and I'll explain that in a minute. All right, we're back at the top here. So let's go ahead and look. One of the things I find that the EveryDollar app doesn't do very well is if you live paycheck to paycheck. So we're going to go ahead and kind of look at how we addressed that situation when we were budgeting paycheck to paycheck and what kind of got us away from having to do it that way. And pretty much that's that we put a buffer in our bank account. So if every month you spend about $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, whatever your monthly spending is, put that buffer, or at least half of the month's buffer, in your account, so that while you're waiting for that next paycheck to come, you already have it in your account, and that next paycheck is just going to replenish the buffer. So you don't want to overdraft your account, but you want to be able to pay the bills as they come up. Hope that makes sense, but pretty much we just make sure that there's additional funds in our account at all times so that we can pay any bill that's due, and then when the money comes in for the month, it will kind of wipe out what we spent. So we still track what we're spending, and we pretty much just pretend like that money that's in there buffering the account doesn't exist. So we really have an extra, I think for us that's $3,000 in the account that will cover most all of our expenses. And then the things that are larger, like our mortgage and our 3 mortgages, all come out at the end of the month when all of the different paychecks have come in, and so we don't have to worry about whether or not we got the money for that. So that's how we kind of deal with that. I don't know if there's a better way to deal with the month to month and tracking individually what each paycheck's going to pay. So if you got a different way, I'd love to hear in the comments how you track that individually using the EveryDollar app. When we did it on paper, we used a specific form, and it actually, you tracked this paycheck's going to pay this bill, this paycheck's going to pay this bill, and you made sure everything was going to get paid by the time it was due. So that's not something that the EveryDollar app really has available for us. So maybe they'll add that in the future. The next thing I want to talk about is sinking funds. If you don't know what a sinking fund is, a sinking fund is when you are saving up for some large purchase in the future that your individual monthly budget can't take on all at once. So Take for Christmas, for example. If you know that you spend probably at least $2,000 on Christmas presents every year, on whatever your budget is for that, you're going to want to break that up every month and put some money aside all 12 months out of the year so that you have $2,000 come December to spend that on, or November if you start your shopping in November. So every month you put a little bit aside into a sinking fund, and by the time that month rolls around, you don't have this large bill that either you have to put on credit cards or you have to totally wipe out and mess up your whole month's budget by having this large expense. So, insurance can be that way. Sometimes insurance breaks that for you, but if you pay all your insurance one time a year, there's another sinking fund that can be. So the EveryDollar app does have that ability. If we scroll down here, you can see any of the ones with the little pig on the side are technically sinking funds, and you'll see here how we use sinking funds differently. But if you notice, we're putting in this next goal category, we're putting $1,000 in for the month. If I click on that, it opens it up to show the remaining amount of $1,668.43. So while we're only adding 1,000, it has $668.43 in the budget already. And that's because the previous month or months, there was rollover money that didn't get used that stayed in it. So let's say we don't use any of this $1,000 or the $668 from the previous month, and the next month's budget starts and we create the new budget. It's going to roll whatever's left in that account into the next budget, plus add what we say we want to add to it. So I hope that makes sense. So sinking funds can be very handy for things that you use like that very often. So one thing that we use for sinking funds is our gas and oil. So if we click on here, again, we've planned $250. We only have $3.66 in our gas and oil, but we don't really know every month how much we're going to spend on gas. Some months we need oil changes and whatnot. Apparently last month we only had $3.66 left over, so we were pretty close. But rather than having to change that total amount, you can go ahead and just make it a sinking fund. It'll roll into the next month. Because we have that category every single month, it's just really easy to say any money we didn't spend this month, we'll categorize it for next month. If it starts to get too large, that current month will just change. So let's say we had $50 roll over from the previous month. Rather than putting $250 in this month, we might only put $200 in this month and be able to spend that in a different category. So it's just a way for us to kind of not have to change a lot of stuff at the end of the month on items that roll over every single month. So that's how we use sinking funds. So we don't just use them for big purchase items. We find that in this budget it's super handy to use it also for items where things are going to roll over anyways. And so we go ahead and just make that a sinking fund, and we have that category in every month's budget, and it's something that we just add to every month. So one thing that I don't believe it currently has is an offline mode. So if you're trying to add to your EveryDollar budget but you don't have a internet connection or Wi-Fi or anything like that, then you're not going to be able to get into your app as far as I understand. Let me do a quick test. If you do not have any Wi-Fi or internet connection, it does store all your data up on the internet, and so it's not going to be able to get any of that data back for you until you have an internet connection again. So if that's something that you struggle with, this might not be the correct app for you, as it's not storing your data directly on your phone. One nice part about that is because it's stored on the internet, my wife and I can both look at the budget and make changes to it, and we will change on each other's phones without any need for updating or syncing or anything like that. So I think that's about it I have for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that gives you a little idea of where we're sitting for our budget for the month. And if you have questions or whatnot, make sure you put those in the comments below, and I'll do what I can to answer them. If you have questions on the EveryDollar app specifically, or you'd like me to do a video on one aspect of it, or you're having a hard time figuring out something, let me know. I'll either reply to the comments or I'll make a specific video directly discussing whatever item you're looking to improve within the app. So hope you enjoyed this. Hit the like button if you did, and we'll go ahead and see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.